Let's bring in Florida GOP Congressman and National Guard Colonel Michael Waltz, member of the Armed Services Committee. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Angel.
Good morning. I know that some members of Congress were briefed yesterday by Jake Sullivan, NSA, and we're wondering what exactly did he tell the congressmen and women? I know that you've spoken to some of them. What are you hearing?
Well, unfortunately, it wasn't anything earth-shattering or anything new. Really, that there's still believe there's a small chance for diplomacy. You know, in these exchange of letters that we've had with the Russians, we've talked about more transparency and exercises with each other, and that they put on the table, the White House has put on the table, shifting some of our short-range ballistic missiles, and perhaps even a promise not to put them in Ukraine. But the Russians have been stacking up these types of missiles for years and would have, I think, more to lose than to gain out of that type of arrangement. So at the end of the day, Ainsley, I don't think Putin has ever been serious about negotiations. I think this has always been to buy time. It takes a lot of time to move things like his Pacific Fleet, his Northern Fleet, his Arctic Fleet, and a huge chunk of his army from Siberia all the way over to Ukraine. And what you're seeing now in terms of we might go, we might not, I believe is more Russian disinformation.
So why do you think they keep talking? To buy time? Or do you think that they need some type of face-saving measure? Should we go to the table with a face-saving measure, whether we want to or not? I mean, just to think he's going to pull back 120,000 troops for no reason because we kept talking is not logical.
Yeah, this would be the largest and most expensive feint or ruse, I think, in modern history, if he doesn't end up going. And I do think there are some things we could put on the table. I believe Putin is hoping that at the end of the day, he can get what he's wanted, which would be an economic collapse, a political collapse in Kyiv, and a window to put his own person in. I do think President Zelensky has done a good job of walking a very fine line between telling his population and his military to get ready and the White House to hurry up with its lethal aid, but at the same time preventing a panic in his capital and playing right into Putin's hands. He's in an incredibly difficult situation, and I think has managed it about as well as he can.
Well, let's see what happens. Congressman, let's get in the Wayback Machine for a moment, and let's set the dial to 2016. Now we know that apparently Hillary Rodham Clinton's campaign paid an internet company to essentially find stuff so that the campaign could say that there was a direct connection between Donald Trump and the Russians, because they found all this stuff on their servers at Trump Towers and his businesses and his home and stuff like that, and then later at the White House. We know that one of her campaign lawyers is in hot water. He's been indicted for lying to the FBI. The question is, if they concocted a story like this, it's more than that one guy who knows the story. And the people who know the story and push the story to the CIA, FBI, and elsewhere in the intel community, those people are in big trouble.
You know what's striking to me, Steve, in what Durham has laid out so far is the level of leadership at the FBI that is being called before the grand jury, the general counsel of the FBI, the assistant director of intelligence, the assistant director of counterintelligence. We all know Peter Strzok's role to some degree already. This is, you know, if we have this and that level of FBI's leadership combined with the fact that if from Brennan's notes, which thank God John Radcliffe declassified, about a White House meeting where essentially this, you know, opposition scheme from the Clinton campaign to basically smear the Trump campaign and plant a false flag on Russia on their servers was laid out before the White House. We have the party in charge of all the levers of power colluding with a political campaign to go after an opponent, the opposite side, a presidential campaign to maintain power. That is a banana republic. That's the definition of it. That's what I've seen in countries all over the world where I've served in the Middle East and Africa. It's really almost hard to believe. It sounds like a novel, but this is what is unfolding before us, and this is a massive, massive scandal that I don't think we've even seen the beginning of yet.
As of yesterday, ABC, 0 seconds of coverage on this story. NBC, 0 seconds. CBS, 0 seconds. MSNBC, 0 seconds. And CNN covered it for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. If the roles were reversed, if this were President Trump doing
Yeah.
this to Hillary Clinton, what do you expect? What would you expect?
Oh, I would expect all of those networks to be in full-fledged meltdown, to be losing their minds, right? I mean, we all saw it during the Russia hoax buildup. The other piece that is really striking to me is that we had a tech company that apparently had an IT contract or some type of responsibility to manage the White House's information systems, some of the most sensitive work in the nation. And that an executive in that company is using that access into the White House to then dig up dirt on the president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, and then provide that as false information over to the FBI. So what I want to know is how witting or unwitting these series of FBI executives were, and how deep this scandal goes.
Well, I think the general counsel for the FBI was interviewed because he's the one who reportedly Michael Sussman, the Hillary Clinton campaign lawyer, lied to. And so that's why Durham would be talking to him.
And the bigger question is, just on your gut feeling with all the work you've done with intelligence, do you believe the FBI and CIA were duped legitimately? Were they just a wink and a nod? I get it. I'm not, I'll push this forward. Do you think they were used? Is there a chance? Or do you think they were in on this whole thing?
Well, again, that's why I go back to that White House meeting where you had Brennan, you had Comey, Susan Rice, right? The president, Obama at the time, Biden, and what did they walk out of that room after they were informed that Clinton planned to smear Trump with Russia as part of, as part of her political offensive? What did they walk out of the room and then inform their leadership? So I think, Brian, best case, you had a terrible case of confirmation bias where these officials wanted to believe it and really kind of turn a blind eye and turn their cheek at what clearly was flawed intelligence. And you've had since then a number of people saying they never would have signed off on those FISA applications. Well, too late. We already drugged the country through all of that and smeared a sitting president. But at worst case, if we had that level of corruption, again, of a party controlling the levers of power, controlling the surveillance state, and then turning it for political means on another presidential campaign, I don't think the country's ever seen the likes of that in its history.
Yeah. We want to talk to you about this, too. This is a story that we were aware of this morning. Levi's president, Levi Strauss, the jean company, her name is Jennifer Say, and she walked away from a $1 million severance package. She quit her job because she said the CEO told her, look, you might become the next CEO if you stop talking about school closures. This is what she said. Yesterday, I was Levi's brand president. I quit so I could be free. I turned down $1 million severance in exchange for my voice. She goes on to say, until recently, I've always felt encouraged to bring my full self to work, including my political advocacy. That advocacy has always focused on kids. Early on in the pandemic, I publicly questioned whether schools had to be shut down. This didn't seem at all controversial to me. In the fall of 2021, during a dinner with the CEO, I was told that I was on track to become the next CEO of Levi's. The only thing standing in my way, he said, was me. All I had to do was stop talking about the school thing. What's your reaction, walking away from $1 million severance package and saying, I'm out?
Well, just yesterday I met with Inez Cantor-Freedom, who spoke out on his views on basic human rights. And because China was upset with it, now he's no longer with the NBA. And we all know what China did against the NBA when you have one coach say, I stand for freedom. But, in this case, this is just this is sad, and it's a sad, I think, tale of where the country is going, where everything has become politicized, and you are going to have, just as we're now having free states and little Venezuelas, people are voting with their feet. I think you're going to now have companies and corporations where you can speak your mind, where you can say, hey, let's follow the science or have some conservative thought, and companies where you can't. And that is just further dividing the nation. Look, I was a small business owner, and it's okay, I think, to take a stand to say, look, here is our brand and here's what's in line with our brand. But then don't be hypocritical, because Levi's has spoken out on immigration policy, gun control policy, social justice issues, and that kind of political speech is okay, apparently. But when a mom says, you know what, I have issues with the rise in teen girl suicides, with the rise in failure rates because of remote schooling, and I'm looking at the science, and kids aren't being affected like they are being out of school by being in school, and start to raise those questions, then suddenly you're canceled as a senior executive. It's just disturbing, guys.
Hey, there's a reporter at Forbes got fired for doing an investigation into Anthony Fauci. Told, you're not writing for us anymore. It's unbelievable. So people got to push back. The more people's eyes are open, the less this will happen. Congressman Michael Waltz, thank you.